Welcome. When you look at the material surrounding the tragic events of June 1994, the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, well, the first thing you have to do is just cut through so much noise.
So much. This case is, legendary for the celebrity, the police pursuit, the whole courtroom spectacle.
It really is.
Exactly. And when a profound human tragedy becomes a global media event like that, the focus almost always defaults to the most high-profile figures, which, in this case, was the accused.
Right.
So our mission here is to move past that relentless sensationalism. We're here to meticulously examine the facts and insights from these documents that specifically illuminate Nicole Brown Simpson's life. The woman, the mother, the person she was, before she became a headline.
To understand the complexity of her marriage.
And the documented pattern of abuse she endured, and how her fate ultimately shaped the entire conversation around domestic violence awareness in the United States.
So let's establish the core framework before we really get into the life behind the name.
The basic facts.
Exactly. Nicole Brown Simpson, born Nicole Brown on May 19, 1959, in Frankfurt, West Germany. She became the second wife of the football star O.J. Simpson.
And she was only 35 years old.
Just 35, murdered on June 12, 1994, alongside her friend Ron Goldman, right outside of her home in Brentwood.
And as the material clearly lays out, the legal conclusion was, well, it's deeply conflicted. It's still a painful part of the public memory.
Simpson was acquitted in the criminal trial in 1995.
But then, just 2 years later, in the civil suit filed by the families, he was found liable for their wrongful deaths.
And it's crucial to note, the sources confirm no other suspects have ever been officially identified.
Never. And her family, the Brown family, maintains their belief without any reservation that Simpson was the sole perpetrator.
So it's necessary to start at the beginning. We want to move past the headlines to her origins, the person she was before meeting her future husband.
She was born in West Germany. Her mother, Juditha, was German, and her father, Louis Brown Jr., was an American pilot who served in World War II.
So that explains the international background.
It does. They met and married in Switzerland after the war.
She was raised Catholic and was the second of 4 daughters. Her sisters were Denise, Dominique, and Tanya.
And the family eventually relocated to Southern California, so she attended high school there, graduating from Dana Hills High School in 1976. That's a huge shift, from a European background to that classic California lifestyle.
And this is where we get those small but really vital pieces of information that reveal the individual. Her 1976 senior yearbook entry is so telling.
It really is.
Her nickname was Nick, and her plans weren't just about settling down. They were about exploration. She planned to ski Europe, go to Brooks Photo School, get Scott.
And the quote she chose?
Be yourself. Don't be phony. You don't have to do anything.
That yearbook entry, it suggests a young woman who was focused on cultivating skills, right? Photography at Brooks was a highly regarded institution.
Serious ambition.
Exactly. This isn't someone just seeking a celebrity lifestyle. It implies a concrete, creative goal, plus a desire for travel and authenticity. It paints a picture of independence.
But that path intersected very sharply with celebrity when she met O.J. Simpson in 1977.
She was only 18, just out of high school, working as a waitress at a Beverly Hills nightclub called the Daisy.
And he was 30, already famous, and still married.
Still married to his first wife, Marguerite Whitley. And that's where the complexity immediately created conflict.
They separated in 77, but the divorce wasn't final until 79.
And Marguerite later talked about that period, describing how Nicole would, call the house or drive by, sometimes claiming to be his secretary. This relationship began in the middle of an existing marital breakdown.
That covert nature seems to have set the stage for controlling behavior right away. The accounts detail these early signs of intense possessiveness.
Yes, her older sister Denise recounted a really significant incident from that first year, 1977.
What happened?
They were at a Buffalo Bills game, and Denise said that Simpson just flipped out because he saw Nicole kiss a mutual male friend on the cheek. A simple kiss on the cheek.
And his reaction was tied to his public image.
Completely. He felt intensely embarrassed, and the result was Nicole crying in a bathroom. This is so early in their connection, yet it provides this chilling preview of the volatility that would define their interactions for the next 2 decades.
It's just a painful realization that the pattern started so quickly. So now we move into the part of our discussion where the sources meticulously document how that volatility progressed into systematic domestic abuse.
Right. They married on February 2, 1985. This was 5 years after his football career had ended.
And they built a family pretty quickly.
They did. They had 2 children, Sydney Brooke, born in 85, and Justin Ryan in 88. Both were delivered via C-section.
And the sources also mentioned she had 3 abortions, one before their marriage.
Yes, and accounts from her sister emphasize that Nicole saw motherhood as her crowning achievement. She dedicated herself completely to her children.
Yet it was after the children arrived that Simpson's behavior became more volatile.
Dramatically worse. The documentation shows the abuse was comprehensive. It was emotional, verbal, and physical. And it continued even after their divorce.
This wasn't just occasional fighting.
No, this was a sustained atmosphere of cruelty and control. Let's detail the specifics from the source material. The verbal attacks were just unrelenting.
During one pregnancy, her sister confirmed he called her a fat pig.
And a family friend, Robin Greer, said he would often refuse intimacy because of her post-pregnancy weight gain. There was constant fighting over his numerous infidelities.
The affair with Tawny Keaton came out in the civil trial.
It did, and in the police report from that New Year's Day incident in 1989, Simpson is even quoted shouting, "I don't want that woman sleeping in my bed anymore. I got 2 women, and I don't want that woman in my bed anymore."
That kind of public humiliation, it says so much about the emotional environment she was trapped in.
And the controlling behavior was terrifying. He went to extreme lengths to isolate her.
Robin Greer's testimony revealed he had her followed.
He did. He'd plant people in clubs she visited to report her activities back to him. And then there was the direct, explicit threat.
The one a family friend cited, where he told her friends that if he ever caught her with anyone, he would kill her.
That's not just possessiveness. That is a premeditated threat that foreshadowed everything.
And the physical violence wasn't isolated either. Nicole's own diary entries documented it all the way back to 1978.
Right at the start of their relationship. But the institutions that were meant to protect her failed repeatedly.
Often because of his celebrity.
The 1989 New Year's Day incident is a pivotal moment because it led to the first formal police report. Nicole called the police, terrified.
And when officers arrived, they found her in a horrific state.
Badly beaten and half-naked, hiding in the bushes. The authorities documented that he had punched, slapped, and kicked her.
And the immediate aftermath is just heartbreaking. It shows how power and money can obstruct justice. Simpson fled in his car.
He did. He eventually pleaded no contest to spousal abuse, but the charges were later dropped. And the sources provide a really critical reason for this.
This is a detail that often gets overlooked.
It is. Accounts suggest Nicole was pressured, mainly by her own parents, to drop the charges.
Why?
Because Simpson was instrumental in financially enabling her father to invest in a very lucrative Hertz car rental facility. This investment provided significant financial stability to the entire Brown family.
So by dropping the charges.
She was allegedly prioritizing her family's financial well-being, which was tied to Simpson, over her own physical safety.
That's an impossible choice, enduring abuse or jeopardizing your family's security.
It shows how the cycle of abuse gets reinforced by these external pressures. And from there, the sources detail the final documented acts of abuse before the permanent separation.
It starts with a really confusing reconciliation attempt in 1993.
Initiated by Nicole, she sent him a wedding video in a letter, begging him to take her back, hoping to stabilize things for the family. But it just collapsed into the most terrifying incident before the murder.
October 25, 1993.
The 911 calls.
The transcripts are available. She's tearfully pleading for help, saying explicitly, "He's going to beat the shit out of me."
And this was triggered because he allegedly found a photo of Keith Zlomsowicz, a man she had dated.
The recordings from that night capture total chaos. You can hear Simpson in the background shouting accusations, saying she'd been intimate with Zlomsowicz in the living room while the children were upstairs.
It's horrifying to listen to.
And when the police sergeant arrived, he secretly recorded Nicole's response.
Yeah.
And it's a moment of profound psychological insight.
She admitted she was frightened tonight. But then she added the qualifier that just haunts the record. And he hasn't hit me in 4 years.
That statement just encapsulates the whole chilling nature of the cycle of violence. The physical assault might stop, but the emotional abuse, the terror, the control that's constant. This tragic history was not ignored by the legal system eventually.
No. Prosecutors in the murder trial documented 62 separate incidents of abusive behavior. This massive documented pattern. It garnered so much public attention.
It actually contributed to legislative action.
Yes, the sheer volume of the abuse spurred California to start enforcing its 1986 domestic violence laws far more rigorously. The tragedy served as a brutal public education moment.
Yet at the same time, Hertz continued airing commercials featuring him right up until his murder trial began.
It just underscores how cultural adoration can blind institutions to private cruelty.
Despite all of that agonizing volatility, the sources show that after they separated for good, Nicole was really determined to carve out a life for herself and her children.
She was. The divorce was finalized in January 1992. She first rented a home on Gretna Greenway, and then in January 94, she moved to the townhouse on Bundy Drive.
A home she was trying to turn into a sanctuary.
It was a genuine effort at independence. The Bundy Drive area was upscale. It was a safe environment for raising Sydney and Justin.
And her sister Denise described this period so beautifully, saying Nicole was just so vivacious, so full of life.
For the first time, she was able to have her own friends. She was planning trips, Yosemite, Club Med, centered around creating positive experiences for the kids.
She was rebuilding her social network with genuinely supportive people.
She became close friends with Kris Jenner. We know she named her daughter Kendall Nicole after her.
And she also met and befriended Kato Kaelin.
Yes, on a skiing trip in '92. He later rented her guest house, paid rent, and helped with the children. He offered some stability and friendship.
And her independence meant navigating a dating life, which was a huge source of conflict with Simpson.
A huge source. She was seeing people like the restaurateur Keith Zlomsowicz, who later testified about Simpson's surveillance.
And crucially, while there were rumors about drug use during this time, the sources are very clear.
Very clear. No drug paraphernalia was found in her home. She had no drugs in her system at the time of her death. That fact is vital to ensuring her story isn't muddied by unsubstantiated rumors.
So let's focus on the immediate run-up to the tragedy, those final weeks in May and early June of '94. The relationship was still so intertwined.
It was. She developed pneumonia in May, and Simpson actually came to her house to care for her. This dynamic from fear to care, it's so typical of these high-conflict relationships, even after a separation.
And it was in this window, just 6 weeks before the murders, that she met Ron Goldman,
a 25-year-old waiter. And their connection has been intensely scrutinized, but the sources are consistent. It was strictly platonic.
They met for coffee, shared dinner.
She even lent him her Ferrari at one point. The emphasis that police and friends placed on the platonic nature of their bond is really important context.
Then, the day before the murder, June 11th, she reached out to Kris Jenner.
Yes, they planned a lunch date for the next day because Nicole had something very important she needed to confide about her volatile relationship with Simpson.
A conversation they tragically never had.
Never. And then just hours before her death, while she was at dinner with her family at Mezzaluna, her sister Tanya noted this deeply poignant comment Nicole made to their mother.
What was it?
She said that despite everything, Simpson would always be her soulmate. That statement, made so close to the end, it just underscores the profound, complicated emotional hold he still had over her, even as she was trying so desperately to break free.
Which brings us to the final moments. The evening of June 12, 1994, at 875 South Bundy Drive.
Nicole had taken Sydney and a friend out to dinner after the kids' dance recital.
And the sources introduced some significant contention around those final moments.
They do. The defense team, during the trials, they presented a witness who claimed to have seen Nicole arguing with two men outside her house shortly after 10 p.m.
An attempt to introduce reasonable doubt.
Exactly. But then you have the sworn statement from her mother, Juditha, who told police she was speaking with Nicole on the phone as late as 11 p.m. that night.
And the records for that call were sealed.
They were, leaving this crucial, disputed gap in the timeline. The lack of clarity around the precise time of the attack just added more fuel to the legal battles.
Regardless of the exact hour, the outcome was discovered shortly after midnight. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman had been stabbed to death outside her home.
And we have to approach the description of the crime scene with respect, focusing on the severity as documented in the forensic reports.
The sources confirm the immense brutality of the attack. Nicole was found lying in a fetal position, in a pool of blood.
The autopsy revealed she'd suffered multiple stab wounds to her neck and scalp. The most catastrophic injury was a massive gash across her throat.
It was the fatal wound.
Immediately fatal. It was incredibly deep, penetrating her cervical vertebrae and severing critical vessels. But what the sources emphasize, and what's so important, is the presence of defensive wounds on her hands.
She fought back.
She fought back fiercely against her attacker in those final moments.
The police theory regarding Ron Goldman's presence framed it as a murder and witness scenario.
Right. Investigators theorized Nicole was the clear intended target, and that Goldman was killed either because he arrived during the attack or because he was talking with her when the perpetrator arrived.
Basically killed to silence him.
But witness testimony supports a different theory, an intervention theory.
Robert Heidstra, the dog walker.
Yes, he testified he heard a man yelling, "Hey, hey," followed by a shout from a second man and a gate slamming. Ron Goldman's family has always maintained he was the one shouting, attempting to intervene and save Nicole.
Solidifying his identity as a hero who died trying to protect a friend.
Absolutely.
Nicole's funeral was held on June 16, 1994, at St. Martin of Tours Catholic Church in Brentwood. It was attended by family, friends, and, controversially, O.J. Simpson. She was laid to rest at Ascension Cemetery in Lake Forest, California. The subsequent legal process became the ultimate spectacle, often overshadowing the memory of both victims. We need to analyze this part, the dual outcomes of the criminal and civil trials.
And why they reached such wildly different conclusions.
The criminal trial. From January to October 1995, it became the trial of its generation. It monopolized media attention globally.
Simpson's acquittal on October 3rd. It's still one of the most polarizing moments in modern American history. It just exacerbated racial divisions, that racial gap in public opinion on justice.
And the sensationalism started months earlier with that low-speed police pursuit,
which interrupted the NBA Finals and was watched by an estimated 95 million people.
The defense team, the Dream Team, led by Johnny Cochran, executed an incredibly potent strategy.
They successfully leveraged the deep-seated anger and distrust many in the African-American community felt towards the LAPD.
This is just 2 years after the Rodney King riots.
Exactly. Their core argument wasn't just about his innocence, but about police misconduct. They argued that blood samples were mishandled, potentially planted.
That the entire case was tainted by police racism and incompetence.
And they created enough reasonable doubt. They even cast suspicion on the new field of DNA evidence, which many jurors didn't fully trust or understand.
Which led to an acquittal that many legal commentators felt raised the thorny issue of jury nullification.
Right, where a jury acquits even if they think the evidence points to guilt, because they see a greater injustice in the prosecution itself.
And it left the country completely divided.
The 1997 civil trial for wrongful death, brought by the Goldman and Brown families, stands in dramatic contrast.
The outcome was a finding of liability. And the procedural differences were absolutely pivotal.
The whole environment was different. The trial wasn't televised, which eliminated the celebrity spectacle. The jury wasn't sequestered, and maybe most importantly,
the defense was prohibited from alleging LAPD racism.
Which meant the central pillar of the Dream Team strategy was gone. They couldn't use it.
And 2 specific pieces of evidence, according to the trial records, made all the difference.
First, the new evidence about the footwear. 31 pre-1994 photos of Simpson wearing these distinct, expensive Bruno Magli shoes were admitted.
This directly contradicted his sworn testimony that he'd never owned that brand of shoe.
Shoes that were consistent with the bloody footprints at the scene. One photo was published 6 months before the murders, so it couldn't have been a forgery.
But I think the most critical, game-changing piece of evidence was the different ruling on Nicole's diary.
Yes. In the criminal trial, they were excluded as inadmissible hearsay.
But in the civil trial, the judge ruled the diary entries were admissible to show Nicole's state of mind.
Which was a brilliant legal move, because her state of mind, her increasing fear, her hostility towards him, her denying him access to the children, that became the crucial link to establishing his motive.
The diary filled that motive gap perfectly.
It did. It showed that in the final weeks, the hostility had taken a devastating turn. Simpson had threatened to report her to the IRS. In retaliation, Nicole began denying him access to the children, treating him, as the document said, like a stranger.
And the lawyer, Daniel Petruccelli, argued that this denial of control was the spark.
The spark that ignited 3 weeks of intense retaliation and uncontrollable rage, culminating in the murders.
So the civil jury held Simpson liable and levied a massive award of $33.5 million.
But securing the verdict was only the start of another long fight. The fight to collect.
He immediately filed for bankruptcy and moved to Florida.
Specifically to protect his NFL and Screen Actors Guild pensions from seizure under Florida law.
The efforts to recoup funds were relentless. His remaining assets were seized and auctioned.
Including his Heisman Trophy, which sold for over $250,000, with the proceeds going to the Goldman family.
But they've reported receiving only a fraction of what they were owed.
And that pursuit continued for decades. In 2017, Fred Goldman's lawyer was still seeking records about real estate purchases by Sidney and Justin Simpson to see if they were bought with their father's cash, potentially making them eligible for a clawback.
And we should briefly address the alternate theories that have surfaced. We're reporting them just because the sources mention them, but they were generally dismissed.
Right. There was a theory about his elder son, Jason, from a BBC documentary.
And another, more publicized one, about a convicted serial killer named Glenn Edward Rogers being hired by Simpson.
But it's essential to provide the professional response to that. The LAPD emphatically dismissed it, saying, "We know who killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman."
And Fred Goldman said the same, that the evidence proved one and only one person was responsible.
Maintaining the finding of the civil court and the conviction of the victims' families.
As we move into our final section, the goal is to fully return the focus to Nicole Brown Simpson's life and legacy, acknowledging the strength of her character that was so obscured by the trial's shadow.
A direct result of her death was the Nicole Brown Simpson Foundation in 1994, later renamed the Nicole Brown Charitable Foundation.
Its purpose was to support domestic violence causes in her memory.
And her memory is truly kept alive by the personal tributes from those who were closest to her. In a 1996 video, her mother called her warm, wonderful, and free-spirited.
These are the details that remind us of the normalcy of the life that was lost.
Her sister Tanya has been really vocal in recent years about shifting the focus. She said in 2019, "Nicole was a mom. She put her kids first. My sister had the ability to live life, live it bright, live it large."
Even Kato Kalin, often seen as a comedic figure, described her in 2024 as a beautiful friend, a beacon of light.
These are powerful affirmations of her core nature.
And the connection with Kris Jenner speaks volumes, naming her daughter Kendall Nicole after her best friend. That's a permanent, loving memorial that exists outside any courtroom.
Her story forced a necessary re-examination of celebrity abuse and societal indifference. The feminist writer Andrea Dworkin addressed it in her book, Life and Death.
She used Nicole's documented experience to illustrate the pervasive danger women face, regardless of their status.
And contemporary media continues that vital work. The filmmaker Ezra Edelman, when he won the Oscar for O.J. Made in America, dedicated it to both Nicole and Ron Goldman.
A conscious public effort to shift the attention back to the victims.
But we can't discuss the media narrative without addressing the controversy around the book, If I Did It.
Simpson's first-person, hypothetical account of how the murders would have happened if he'd been the killer.
The context for its existence is troubling. Simpson himself admitted it was an attempt for his children to gain a financial legacy, calling the potential proceeds blood money.
But the Goldman family, through successful legal maneuvering, acquired the rights to the book.
All of them. The copyright, media rights, even his likeness rights. They then published it under the title, If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer.
Which ensured he couldn't personally profit from it, though it did draw some criticism.
It did. But the final, poignant detail in the source material really brings the story full circle to family and memory.
Her parents, Louis and Juditha, both passed away in the last decade.
And they were both interred next to Nicole at Ascension Cemetery. The sources note this led to a single, larger headstone commemorating all three of them. A moving image of a family reunited in remembrance, free from the noise of the world that consumed her last years.
So what we've seen clearly from these sources is that the tragedy that unfolded on Buddy Drive was not a sudden crime. It was the final, devastating act in a long-term, documented pattern of domestic violence that Nicole Brown Simpson was subjected to throughout her adult life.
Absolutely.
Her story, nearly swallowed whole by the trial, ultimately forced a critical public examination of the cycle of abuse and influenced necessary changes in legal protections for victims.
Indeed. The extensive evidence of abuse highlights this chilling persistence, the vast gulf between the public persona of a celebrity and the terrifying private reality endured by the victim. A final consideration for you, the listener, is to reflect on how often the narrative around violence involving a celebrity defaults to the legal drama.
Right, the procedural complexities.
What happens when the focus shifts away from the victim's life, her identity, her aspirations, her reality, and the crucial systemic failures that played a role in her death? It forces us to remember Nicole Brown Simpson not just as a name in a tragic headline, but as a person whose life mattered and whose death provoked essential, enduring change.
Thanks for listening.